For sure. The more you're around another person and the more you hear them talk about the car, and it's a language, really, that you kind of end up speaking. So being able to understand each other's language and stuff is helpful, because it's always hard to really describe how a car handles, like how to put that in words. Like it's...
Green flag.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Use Apex 10 at checkout to save 10% on fueling your passion. I love the K24 in my 8th gen. I'm still daydreaming about a K24 RX8. I want to learn more about the RX or the K24 in a rear wheel drive, and maybe learn about the FA24 because it seems to be pretty competitive and popular these days. And it seems like the industry's falling in love with these 2.4 liter 4-cylinder engines. So joining me to talk about K24s, FA24s, S2000s, and all that, car builder, GLTC racer, one-lap competitor. The rumor is he once got bored with road racing, so he wanted to start drifting. We'll confirm that later. The mastermind behind the Trainer S2000 setups and namesake of AS Motorsports, Andy Smedegard. Welcome to the podcast, sir.
Thank you for that.
I do my best. I do a lot of stalking on the internet, and I consume a lot of podcasts, so... Yeah,
cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I actually want to talk about the 2025 season a little bit, because especially at the end, I saw Tom O'Gorman in Trainer 3. It was still kicking at pit race. You were out there in is it a FRS that you were driving?
Yep. Well, I think it's technically a BRZ, but yeah, same thing.
Okay.
Yep, it was the FA24 powered FRS.
Now, is that car swapped? It's not a GR86 with the FA24, right?
No,
Okay.
It's just a first gen, but we swapped in the second gen engine.
Okay. Yeah. So how was managing and dealing with 2025? Because you still had cars out there, right? The ASM S2000s were out, and you were racing.
Yep.
So let's catch up with you a little bit and talk about 2025.
Sure. So I honestly started 2025 with no real intention of me racing much myself. Mm-hmm. It was mainly there to support some customer stuff. And we started kind of developing the BRZ. We went back to the FA24, which was K-swapped. That same car we had K-swapped, and we eventually just wanted to go back to a simple setup. So we did the FA24, and about midway through the season, stuff started to just work on that car, and it worked really well. Mm-hmm. I think it was Lime Rock. We actually ended up winning that weekend. And it was like mid-season, and it kind of got me more motivated to try to maybe compete with that car a little more serious. So I did about, I think, 3 or 4 other Grid Life events with the car and did pretty well. But I had no real intention of competing like season points-wise. I think maybe I had just the minimum number of events needed to finish with points. But yeah, I mean, that was my 2025 season for myself, but then we also campaign, several other cars. I've got customers that run cars. And then, like you said, the last event we had Tom bring him back in with the S2 and kind of see how the BRZ would stack up against the S2.
Yeah, so that's definitely on my list to talk about. But you said something that interests me, because everybody's like K-swap the world, LS swap the world. And you said you wanted to simplify the BRZ to go backwards and away from the K24. So can we expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. So, and stop me anywhere in this if you want to go into more depth, but the K24, it's a great engine. No doubt about that, but it does have some downsides to it. When you swap any car with any engine, especially a mixed manufacturer swap, mm-hmm. you have a lot of things you have to figure out. Adapters and engine mounts, and there's just so many swap parts to it all. So we originally did the K24 and the BRZs because the original FA20 engines were pretty gutless. They didn't make much power. It was, and even like if you did all of the bolt-on mods, I mean, you're still not getting as much power as what a K24 could make. So the K24 made sense up until the second gen engines kind of came out. And the second gen engine literally just drops right in. Very, very little modifications needed. The engine cost itself is maybe a little more expensive than the equivalent like JDM K24, but you have no swap components. You know, it just all bolts right in. There's a few little things you have to do, so the total cost to do that swap is at least half the price of a K-Series. The other downside of the K-Series is these are old engines, so you're buying, you know, let's say you just buy the JDM K24. Those are engines from 20-some years ago.
Yep.
They need to be gone through. You know, seals are dried up. So you're kind of having to go through and refresh an old engine. You know, and at that point, you may as well just start with the FA24, which you can get out of a brand new GR for $4,000 to $5,000, and it will make about the same power.
Yeah, I think right now I can go to the importer and get an RBB3 K24 for $950, I think. That's local
they're about
to me.
1,100 shipped.
Right.
Sure.
So, you know, it mileage varies with how much it's going to cost and who you're dealing with, right? But somewhere in that $1,000 range. But you're right. There is so much that goes into that swap. So can we talk a little bit about, because it's very successful in the S2000, right? You guys have basically ironed that out.
Yeah.
So
to go into the maybe to go into the S2000 a bit, the K24 swap makes sense in that chassis, mostly because if you try to find a replacement engine for your S2000, it's nearly impossible to find one, especially a low mileage one. If you can find it, you're spending $10,000 on a used F22 engine. And then you'd have to worry about that every track day you go to, that you might pop this $10,000 engine. So that's when the K24 seems to make a little bit more sense. Yes, the initial swap is probably in that $10,000 range, all said and done, but then you can track the car without having to worry about popping an engine. If you do, it's just another $1,000. So it makes sense in the Honda. They also fit in that car well. I mean, everything kind of, if I showed you a picture of a K24 in an engine bay, you'd think that's what it came with.
Right.
So, and then if you are doing any sort of competing, especially in a power to weight series, the K series does make a little more torque, so it's a little more usable horsepower compared to like the F20. So it kind of just makes sense in an S2. But the BRZ has another solution, available to it. So we like to find a solution that just makes sense. We don't want to do just a K swap because we really like K series. We want to do an engine swap that just makes sense and works well.
Yeah, so let's talk about the K24, I guess. What kind of oiling, baffling stuff are you guys dealing with? The manifolds, throttle bodies, stuff like that. So yeah.
So we'll start from the bottom of the engine. Oil pan, we'll do typically the Type S oil pump, so you can rev it out to... I try to tell people, don't be revving it a lot over 8,500 often. I mean, once or twice, maybe on an autocross or something, sure, but try to keep it under 8. The oil pan, we typically will use either a Unit 2 or a Moroso oil pan, baffled pan. And it's the same pan that you would use in a front-wheel drive configuration. It works well. Mount the engine mounted the other way. It still needs oil pressure in every direction. So really it shouldn't matter what orientation you have the engine. So, and we've had really good success with oil pressures. Really don't have any oil pressure issues.
Are you guys using the baffle for the chain? That little metal?
No.
Okay.
The only baffle, we use the OEM Type S little baffle plate.
Right.
That, and then the oil pan has a baffle with some trapdoor stuff. But yeah, that's about it. And we actually don't even run oil coolers in a lot of the cars, especially the sprint race cars. Just the added capacity of a bigger pan and stuff. It's been fine. We really don't have too many oil temp issues. What else? So you brought up the throttle body and all that, extra stuff, which really is the result of vibrations, which is what the K24 is mostly. That is the Achilles heel of the K24 is the vibrations and harmonics. It's a long stroke inline 4-cylinder, makes a lot of secondary harmonics. So keeping everything happy, keeping things alive, keeping things from cracking is the hardest part of that engine. So what we've done mostly, I mean, you can keep revs down. That helps a lot. You keep them if you keep it under 72, 7300, that engine will live all day long there. But once you get to 75, you get this peak harmonic that happens. Keeping like a lot of the sensors alive will if you brace actually the intake manifold, adding a lot of bracing back to the block will help keep a lot of that stuff alive. Without the braces, the vibrations travel further away from the center line of the crank. If you think of like a pitchfork, the further away the longer the pitchforks are, the vibration is the worst. So without bracing anything, you have a longer pitchfork.
Okay.
So adding the bracing was probably one of the biggest things we've done, and the thing that has probably given us the best result with keeping everything alive. What else did we do? I mean, the other traditional stuff, fluid damper, that'll help a little bit. There's cars that we've went drive-by-wire. We've used, you maybe have saw it, Winning Formula makes a little kind of coupler that isolates the throttle body from vibrations. Before that, we were killing throttle bodies about every event. Now we've never killed one since going to that. So lots of those little tricks. Red Loctite. Loctiting everything. That was the other big thing. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those little tricks to keep the K24 happy. I should say happy, just keep it alive.
Yeah, my 8th gen Civic with a K24, I use the Permatex orange, so in theory it removes like blue but has the hold strength of red. Oh my lord, I shook all sorts of stuff loose. Still, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
Caused a lot of problems.
One thing I've heard too with the front wheel drive, the way it's mounted versus how we mount it in the K20 or in the S2000 is the mounts on a front wheel drive car kind of suspend the engine a little higher up away from the crank, where when we put them in an S2, it puts the mounts kind of, where the factory S2000 mounts are. So a lot of those vibrations kind of become worse in a rear wheel drive configuration versus a front wheel drive.
Oh, from the positioning of the mounts and where they attach and things.
Right.
Okay. So
not a whole lot we can do there. I mean, we could try to make some weird custom mounting it in the middle of the engine, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for my car, I had to remove the front mount, so I'm only living off the trans, the passenger side, and then that rear mount that go.
Yep.
So.
Yeah.
But.
Do you go to aftermarket mounts on yours?
Yeah, I'm running Hossport mounts on my stuff. I've just. Sure. Now I'm not running the race or whatever. I'm running the street poly in it, just trying to let it absorb and not
soften it up.
Try to. I mean, also in my car, I have to tilt the crap out of the engine to make the header fit. So
right.
I've got stacks of washers shifting the engine and stuff. So.
A bunch of hammer marks on the firewall?
No, I didn't do that.
No, you didn't.
Yeah. I try not to drill extra holes, and I try not to beat on it with a hammer, but I would if I had to, but it fit with washers. So.
So you're not trying hard enough till you bring the hammer out.
Well, it fit without the hammer, so we left the hammer alone. Trust me, I have a drawer full of hammers, 4 pounds, 6 pounds, mini sledges and 18-inch handles, 12-inch handles. I got them all. I'm good at implements of destruction, but I try not to use them unless I need them. Usually when I bust them out, there's trouble. So
yeah.
Okay, so the other trick is the clutch setup, right? So is there a trick to you guys with the K24s and that transmission?
I don't know if I'd call it a trick, but it's been, and this even goes with the F-Series engine, there's a lot of the replacement clutch discs that have the open clutch hub springs, and they're notorious for flying out. So we use the OEM S2000 clutch disc, which has nice enclosed hub springs, And then it's an ACT pressure plate, so it's a little heavier pressure plate than the stock. So it still offers stock-like drivability with just a little heavier pressure plate for the added torque. And that combination has worked really well for us. I mean, we'll typically go 3-4 years on a clutch, and then we do replace them usually about at that mark, that 2-3 seasons. We start seeing the hubs start to crack a little bit, and I'm sure this is just, again, due to harmonics. But yeah, we'll start seeing little stress cracks all over the clutch disc and the hub. So yeah, usually just every few seasons, put a new disc in, and they're cheap. They're $150 for a new disc.
Right.
So 3 seasons, $150. I mean, that's pretty cheap, component.
Right. And it's peace of mind, right? Like if you're going to do it, you don't want to do that track side. I mean, it's doable, obviously, but
right.
In the comfort of your shop, it's easier.
Yeah, for sure. And our, we do enough of these cars. We try to, find the patterns and try to find those, what the maintenance interval is. So we've kind of learned over the course of the last, 7-8 years, clutch, we just do that every 2-3 seasons. We preventatively just replace the clutch disc. And there's a bunch of components we have that we just, it's not bad yet, but we know if we push another season, there's going to be one event that's going to fail and it's going to take you out of a race, and then we got to fix it at the track. So it's just cheaper to do it right now and replace it. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, that's the best way to go. Preventative maintenance, get on a schedule. It's the best. Just,
yep.
I hate working on stuff at the track. It's inevitable, but the less you have to do, the better, right?
It's hard for people to kind of grasp and fully understand that, because we're all kind of cheap to a point. We're trying to do more than what we should. So it's always hard to just replace that component that still is fine, right? It worked last event. Why wouldn't it work this next event? So
yeah. So okay, now I want to hear about the tricks, the issues that you were having with it in the K24 and the BRZ, and in some of the issues you ran into there.
So really, we didn't have a lot of new issues. It was a lot of the same ones. We had, exhaust stuff cracking. We never had really good success with the transmissions, the stock BRZ transmissions behind the K24. Getting them to shift well, especially high RPM, was challenging. So yeah, I mean, I feel like we got it working okay. In fact, there's a couple cars we still support that are still running K24s and the BRZs. But I just knew it was from a business standpoint, it was such a hard sell to people, that if you have a BRZ and you want to K-swap it, I mean, I when I have to do the quotes on it, it's, $15,000 to $20,000. Like, why are people spending that much money just to get 230 horsepower? That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I wanted to find a simpler solution, and all my cars are just more shop R&D cars. So I wanted to experiment on my own car and find a different solution. And that's when we started doing the FA24 stuff.
Yeah. My buddy Edgar, he specifically requested, as soon as he found out I was going to talk to you, he has a K24 BRZ, and he's been fighting it since day one. And he's finally got everything squared away, but he loves to squirrel extra parts, right? So he said he got the last header, the 2-piece header that you make for it. He got the last one, and he'd like to request more. So I wanted to put that out there just for him.
We can still do more. We still do sell a decent amount of K-swap BRZ components. Okay. So I mean, if anyone still needs stuff, I mean, we're not like anti K-swap BRZ. In fact, I mean, sometimes the K-swap makes sense if you're trying to make more than, what a FA24 can make, which currently is about 220-ish horsepower. If you're trying to make more than that, maybe the FA24 isn't the engine you want to use. Maybe it is a K series or an LS or something. Who knows? But yeah, we still do sell a lot of parts. So if anyone needs it, we're happy to help with your product.
Okay, that's great. I'm an idiot and I want to put it in an RX-8, and because I want to do one lap in K24 RX-8 because I figure they turn well and their weakness is the motor. So why not put God's motor in there? So
yeah, I agree. I think the RX-8's a good chassis. In fact, I had an RX-8 that we did a K swap in.
Okay.
The problem with that is where the engine sits, you end up having to pack up the firewall a bit and probably gut out part of your heater core and all that stuff.
Yeah, I can remove the stock heater core, put in a hot rod heater core probably.
Yeah.
There's lots of options.
Yeah. And it's been done. I mean, there's several people floating around out there with K-swaps and RX-8s.
Yeah, it's just not as popular. And I guess everyone wants the LS when they buy those cars, but
sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, nothing wrong with an LS either.
Well, a little nose heavy on that car, but sure.
Yeah, maybe.
But okay, so you're still supporting K24 S2000s, at least trackside and with the customers. You have K-swap FRS BRZs, you have the FA24 BRZs, right? Like, so you have the gambit. Okay, so what does the development path look like for ASM and the BRZ FRS? And it's a little loaded because you're still plodding away, and the off season just sort of kicked off. But I also sort of want to compare all three combos, if possible.
Sure. So let's see, where do you want to start?
Look, you want
to start with the
let's start with the comparison between the the chassis wise. So when you're comparing a K24 S2000 and a K24 FRS BRZ, like, do they drive the same? Do they drive similar? Which one?
No.
Okay.
The power I guess could drive similar, but the way the cars handle is just so vastly different. One being a nice AA arm, very well balanced car, versus the BRZ, being a strut car. I don't know if the engine really has much to do with it there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, they're both about power wise just the same. But yeah, a BRZ I always find is much easier to drive at the limit. Being a strut car, you can make it kind of sharp on the nose, but it's not as snappy as an S2. I don't know if you've driven many S2s, but they can bite you pretty bad if you're not ready. Like you've got to be on top of things.
Right.
So I would still take an S2. I really enjoy driving an S2 at the absolute limit. It rewards you when you do everything right, but it'll penalize you when you do it wrong. Where the BRZ is, I don't want to say anyone, but like you could really throw most people in that car and they're going to get almost everything out of the car much, much quicker than they would in an S2000, which is sometimes an advantage to the car. I mean, if you can drive a car at the limit much easier, that's more brain bandwidth that you have for, racecraft.
Right.
So
it's like the S2000 is the high risk, high reward, that lap time can plummet, but
yep,
you definitely hung it out there and you were on the razor's edge, where maybe the FRS BRZ, the edge isn't quite as sharp, but it's very consistent.
Right. Yep, exactly. So I feel like the S2 is a great sprint race car, and the BRZ is a good maybe endurance car, because you don't want something that's such high risk the whole time. You want it just to be nice, easy to drive, consistent. Yeah, and that's what I think the BRZ does super well.
So you went for simplicity to go to the FA24, but what did the car lose anything or gain anything outside of simplicity by going backwards, or not backwards? It's modernizing that car. So
yeah, so lots of variables. So I mean, I didn't do any direct A/B testing, with the car in K-swap form versus FA24, but I started development with the car doing the K-swap, and I eventually just started having, a lot of little small issues, and kind of decided that I wanted to build a more simple, relatable chassis that more people could obtain. Mm-hmm. So that's when I put the FA24 in it. And it was kind of around when I did that I stopped having to chase little issues with the K-swap. So I could just focus so much more time on developing the rest of the car. Try playing with suspension setups a bit more and a different diff setup, and that's when the car got faster. Is when I didn't have to when I didn't have to worry about the engine stuff anymore. And I think that's the case with a lot of people. So many people are chasing little engine gremlin issues or swap issues, when really, like, you just need a good, reliable engine, and then you can focus on so many other things, including just driving.
Right.
Focus on your driving, focus on the trying different, knobs on the suspension and, all that stuff. So, yeah, the car has never been faster than it has been. So, I don't know if I can credit it all to just the FA24, but I can tell you I haven't had a single issue with the FA24, and I haven't had to do anything except change oil.
Right. Well, I kind of want to get into that a little bit, but so what I'm hearing is, instead of you having to spend time chase down issues, you were able to focus on car development, which is key.
Exactly.
Yep. I got faster and my car got faster when I left my car alone for a year and just drove it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The more I messed with it, educated or uneducated, we'll figure that out later, but the more I messed with it, or the bigger swings I took in certain areas, just because the rules changed, seemed like the more issues I started having. So,
yep.
Not only are you going to gain the bandwidth on track, but you're going to gain that bandwidth off the track, because now you get to look at your data more instead of fiddling, right? Like, you get to find those spots. I think that's kind of important.
Exactly.
So what does the development path look like for the FA24 in the FRS? Because you have the trainer set up, right? It's been touted for years now. You have the recipe for the S2000.
Yeah.
So what's the path look like for the FRS BRZ?
So I'd like to take the BRZ a little, one step further. The setup that I've really ran the car this year is very basic. The engine is a full stock engine. The suspension is just some single adjustable, motons, and nothing is super fancy about the car at all. So I'd like to take some of that and just try to develop it, one step further. I'm going to try some, better shocks, wider tire package, maybe play with different intake and exhaust setups to try to get a little more power. So, it's just, more refinement, really. And yeah, I don't really know if I want to take the BRZ much further than, I guess, that. Like, I'm not looking to add boost or do anything super crazy.
You're not going to super BRZ
it? No, definitely not. Yeah, I've always been one, if you're looking for more power, maybe stepping up to just a faster car to begin with might be a better solution, I'm more of a driver, so I'd rather not work on my car and have to build it. Right. I'd rather just kind of get in and drive. So
I love getting in and driving, but my idle hands have a serious problem. I'd have a hard time leaving stuff alone.
Yeah.
I'm literally waiting for the rules to come out for Honda Challenge so I can say I have nothing to touch other than install my aim dash and stuff, right? Like, I want to not hurt my car by me trying to maximize rules and just get more seat time. But so, are you looking to mimic the trainer fleet with BRZs?
Kinda. Whatever I'm usually most interested in is what I kind of preach on everyone else. So, like, a lot of my other buddies and stuff, they have S2000s, and I'm just like, dude, you need a BRZ. Just get rid of the S2, get a BRZ.
Yeah, you're gonna scumbag them into it.
Yeah, and it's enticing because S2s are so expensive now, and the parts are getting hard to get, and that's where it's like, dude, BRZ, everything's just so cheap, and it's almost just as fast, and it's easy to drive, and so yeah, trying to, basically build a car that we can just cookie cutter and make another one.
Right. Clones.
That's kind of always been that's kind of been our thing a bit. You can develop and make one and then just clone that a couple times. Yeah.
And so I actually want to talk about that a little bit because I've got I don't know, 4 buddies of mine. We all race 8th gen Civics in my region. We're not clones of each other at all. And for whatever reason, we can't get the cars to, even when they try my setup or I try their setup, like the cars aren't behaving properly. So there's a lot to it. But can we talk about how you guys cloned and then how you guys shared data to then sort of improve the cars in general?
Yeah, and maybe it's not as scientific as you might think. You know, it really just kind of comes down to a couple of us jumping in between cars and kind of pointing out what we liked about that or what we didn't like. Mm-hmm. And then usually I go back to the shop, try to kind of digest it a bit and check some things and then maybe just try a different setup. So some of it's just trial and error. Some of it maybe we take some educated guesses on it, I guess. But yeah, really, a lot of it's just come down to when you have 3 or 4 of the same car and everyone's trying something different and then everyone kind of swaps cars. You can start to try to find, what everyone likes and everyone stick with that maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be helpful. It seemed to be helpful years ago where you guys were showing up and I don't know what you guys were doing, but I'd watch the live stream and it's always like, okay, the ASM cars are, there's 4 of you, 3 of you, and you're in the top 6 or 7 and you're always jockeying up front. And then you end up maybe the first 2 or 3 or whatever. And they always, I don't want to say accused you guys of sharing so much data, but I couldn't help but also think it.
Yeah, right. There's no doubt about there is an advantage there. There's nothing to hide. Like we definitely, especially when it was like Tom and I, and this is the other thing, like you really have to have drivers that are in tune with setup, and some of the other customers and stuff we support, and no offense to them, they're not driving every single weekend. They're not setup drivers. So having a couple good drivers that know how to really feel something out is super beneficial. And that's where like having Tom on the team and stuff and obviously being a professional driver, I mean, he knows what he's doing. Having a couple of us really good drivers be able to identify why the car is good was key. So yeah, we definitely had an advantage running very similar cars.
I just remember a video. It was you and Tom doing 1 lap, I think in SuperK. And I can't help but think that time where you guys were that week or so in one car together, where you have nothing to do but talk about whatever, planning the rest of the trip, planning the attack at the next track, that you guys learn each other. You may not be exactly the same style of driver, but his style and you understand how it applies to your needs. And so it's easier to apply. I don't know. I feel like there's some benefit there too. So
for sure, the more you're around another person and the more you hear them talk about the car and it's a language really that you kind of end up speaking. So being able to understand each other's language and stuff is helpful because it's always hard to really describe how a car handles, like how to put that in words. Like it's very difficult to put it in words. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I've been intrigued about the evolution of the S2000s. I'm a Honda fanboy, so I can't help but follow SuperK every time it's out at 1 lap, So it's just one of those things that I have to follow. And I just picked up on some things. And when I got the opportunity, I've talked to Tom a couple of times on the podcast. And now that I got to talk to you, I just wanted to hear your side of it and just hear about the development and then how you guys are communicating. So,
yeah,
but that's awesome. So, okay, we're looking. So what does 2026 look like for you guys?
It's still not fully set. We're waiting for a lot of the schedules and stuff to come out. We're waiting for rules and stuff to come out. We've always traditionally done a lot of the grid life events. And so far the plan I think is to do most of the grid life stuff this year. The schedule's a little different than they have in the past. They've kind of went down to a reduced schedule, and it happens to be a lot of the events are all pretty far away. I think it was like 2023. They had, I think I put on 15,000 miles on the rigs that season. Like, it was just nonstop driving.
Mm-hmm.
And I told myself I did not want to have to do that again. I hated that much travel. And for most people, it might not be a big deal, but we have 7 cars we're trying to travel to events with. So like, it's a lot more stressful than just, a single place open trailer.
Right. So
yeah, this season, it looks like they have a lot of a schedule that's very spread out. It's again, going to be a lot of miles, which I'm not very, too much of a fan
Are
of.
the dates at least spread out? Because I think back then, I can't remember. I heard you were talking maybe on like 10/10ths or something. I can't remember the podcast, but you were like, basically, we get home from a race weekend, I work 3 days, and then we're packing up to go somewhere else, it feels like,
Yeah, the schedule this year is definitely better. It's more spread out. There's about a month or so between events, so that is helpful for sure. Yeah, the 2-3 some years ago, there was events, I believe, like 2 weeks that were back to back. You had to drive from mid Ohio, and the next 2 weeks later it's in Colorado. Mm-hmm. So at least none of that. But yeah, so currently our most likely our plan is to probably do most of the grid life season for 2026. We'll be doing one lap again with SuperK.
Okay.
What other events we got? I'm sure we're going to sprinkle in a couple, just open track day, test day type stuff. There's talks maybe of doing a couple NASA events too. Just trying to find some more local stuff to fill in.
So you hosted a practice day at Pit Race before the 2025 Grid Life Championships, right? So, or the last event. I don't know if we call it championships, but all right, do you host? Are you planning to host anything in 2026?
We are. I guess nothing's booked yet, so I can't really say for sure. But yeah, we're hoping to put on a couple events, maybe like do something at Blackhawk, maybe Autobahn, just for more local events, kind of for our own testing. Plus, honestly, I have some of the most fun just doing chill, track days where you borrow each other's cars and everyone kind of plays musical cards and stuff. Like, that's honestly some of the most fun, relaxed, non-stress events I have. So
yeah. So okay, I have a couple of things before I wrap up. One is I saw a recent post about get your dampers in now for servicing. It's a great time of year. So one, as somebody who you travel and take care of 7 cars, I can absolutely see how you would want to simplify your personal car so you have time to deal with other cars and still race. I get that.
Yep.
But managing that many cars, what service interval do you recommend for our dampers? Because I can tell you mine have never been serviced.
and sadly, that's the case for almost most people, especially in our more grassroots motorsports world. Is most people buy their dampers and that's it. It's just they never get rebuilt. We try to do ours at least. We do visual inspections just from outside. We'll check gas pressure and stuff once a year at least. But an actual like tear down, change fluid, some seals, we're doing that at least every 2 seasons. You also have to kind of remember too, your car is getting used. The shocks are getting used when it's on the trailer. So yeah, your car might only have done 5-6 track days. So you'd think there's not much wear on it, but that car was bouncing the entire, 2,000 mile transit. So I'd say at least every 2 seasons for sure, they should be at least gone through and at least just do fluid change and stuff. Some of the shocks when we pull out the fluid, it's just black.
Oh, so okay. So here's my personal dilemma is that I finally got this stupid car to turn 98% of the way I want it. The McPherson front wheel drive cars are tough to turn slow. But medium and fast stuff, this thing is great. Okay. Predictable, steps out just enough. I'm getting the rotation in the medium stuff, like right when you want it, like early on, mash the gas, power, pull yourself through, right? It's feeling good. It's just the really stupid slow stuff. I feel like if I pull them off the car and get them serviced,
You'll lose the
I'll
magic.
lose the magic.
I would hope not. So we typically, every customer wants something a little different, but in this case, we would probably dyno your shocks first. Let's just see where they're at. That'll be our good baseline. And then from there, we'll pull them apart and inspect stuff and see if there's, wear on stuff or whatever. But I mean, we would have at least dyno graph of before and make sure they're like you had it. So, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, if it loses the magic, sometimes you want to investigate why, like, where's that magic coming from? If you don't know, you just kind of, you guessed and you got it right, but you don't know it for next time.
I know, but I want to ride this guess as long as possible.
Yeah, no, I completely get it. There's definitely been times I get out of the car, I'm like, man, whatever the car is, like, it's just working. It's so good right now. I don't want to touch anything. But then something happens and you lose it, and now you don't know what to do because you didn't know what made it good before.
Right.
So
okay, so I have Redshift BCs. I don't know if you work on those. What do you guys work on?
The two biggest brands we service mostly and use are Moton and Öhlins. But we do quite a few other stuff, JRZs, we've done Multimatic. I mean, I'd say probably, I don't know, half the shocks out there we're able to service. Some of these companies don't exactly make it easy for other places to service. Like, they don't sell the parts, they don't publish any, or won't give out any of the information, technical drawings or any of that stuff. So some of them make it a little challenging.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I have two other questions. Is outside of shocks, what is another good tip for us do-it-yourselfers or people? What do you see other people ignore over the winter on their cars that they should pay attention to?
Over the winter, man, I don't know. I think it's different for everyone. One thing I find, I guess, performance in that a lot of people maybe don't is like playing with LSD setup stuff. And then maybe gearing, optimizing gearing, especially in a power to weight type class, like making sure, you're always making, in your peak power band is helpful. But I mean, otherwise, really, I don't know what most people ignore over winter.
So everything. Yeah. So how are you guys optimizing the FRS BRZ? Are there multiple gear stacks that like came from the same but different manufacturers? Are there gear stacks different by the year? Like, how are you guys working on that?
So there's a couple different gear options. It'd be aftermarket gears. The gear ratios are pretty much the same amongst all of them, even in the new GR. The biggest really issue with the BRZ is the 6 gear. So if you actually step back, your final drive is really where we would start with. They come with stock with like a 410. We usually run into like a 450 to a 470, somewhere in there, which means you're going to be using 6 gear, and 6 gear is like this double overdrive. So our kind of go-to setup is like a 450 final drive with the shorter 6 gear, and that puts all the gears in a nice usable range. And it's not that expensive because you're only having to do the 1 gear on the trans.
And that's what you were setting up with the K24 and the FA24, right?
It's what I set up with the FA24. The K24 you can get away with a little more because it makes more broad torque. So you don't need such a lower gear ratio final drive. You could do like a 430 or something and probably be fine.
Okay. All right. So I have a segment in 2025. Actually, I probably need to look at all the recordings that I have and figure out whether this is going to be in 2025 for sure, but got to figure out when I'm stopped doing this segment and do my 2026 segment. But, so here's my question. What is your favorite racer excuse?
Favorite racer excuse. Are we series specific?
No, and some people are like, well, I think this is the funniest one I've ever heard, but this is my favorite one to use personally. So any way you take it.
Huh. Man, I don't know if I have a favorite racer excuse other than I don't know, just blaming anything on the car. I always kind of get annoyed. Maybe not annoyed. Yeah, annoyed. Anytime anyone blames anything on the car, it's like, when is the car actually ever perfect?
Right.
Like there's not. There's never. I can't remember hardly ever where it's like, yeah, the car was just perfect for the entire time. Like there's always something small. So yeah, anytime anyone blames the car, it's like, yeah, whatever. Everyone deals with that. drive better.
Yeah. So okay, I'm 100% guilty of blaming the car all the time, and I blame the car because I know I'm not a good enough driver to drive around some of the issues. Right? There's techniques. Sure. Well, I'll blame front wheel drive cars because they push. Right? They're plowing snow all the time. Right? They just plow. There's certain things good drivers can do to sort of muscle them around that, right? It has to be possible because the guys that I drive a completely backwards setup to the rest of the guys, okay? My setup seems to work for me, doesn't work for them. Their setup doesn't work for me, and I can't make them. They're like, yeah, it plows, but I still get the lap time. If I get a lap time, like if it plows like they are, I can't get the lap time. It just won't work for me. You know, and I can't drive around it. And I realize that's my fault, but in the moment I'm blaming the car because it's plowing. I don't add the, and I can't drive around it part, but
Yep. Yeah. You can easily get frustrated in the car, and you definitely have to get yourself in that mindset of like, all right, stop blaming the car. Let me try some things, just, you have to be adaptable, and that's a skill in itself.
Yeah, I struggle too because I'll look at the
something you have to just work on.
I'll look at the data and I'm like, I've never been slow there before. What the hell, and yeah, it gets frustrating and I get off my game. That's another reason. Like there's the mental fortitude that you have to have as a driver to focus on the right things, force yourself to overcome things. That's where I'm weak, right? Like I get it. But I think a lot of people are. We just don't admit it to ourselves. I'm hoping admitting it is like the first step of the 12-step fix.
I was just exactly. I was just about to say that first step, admit it, and then you'll get better.
For sure. Well, Andy, it's been a great talk, man. Where can everybody find you if they live under a rock and they haven't heard of ASM before? So
probably your Instagram, Facebook stuff, AS Motorsports. I think on both, or my personal one, which is DISM. Goes back to the DSM days, 20 some years ago. Yeah, I think
you're still into cars, and you started with the DSM. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I got smarter.
Well, you did, but everybody I grew up with that had a DSM has basically quit. They're not car people anymore.
Yeah. When I first started getting into driving events, I still had a DSM. And when I knew how much fun it was to drive the car, I knew I had to just get rid of the DSM and find something that's just reliable. And that's when I kind of started switching to the Hondas.
Okay. Well, you must have done it early enough because most of those guys are like, to heck with it. And they were trying to drive in a straight line most of the time. So,
yeah.
All right, Andy. Well, I appreciate you coming on, sir.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.